The first application on our agenda tonight is a continued hearing for Zero Bedford. Let's come up to the microphones and give us an update. I understand you may have some updated plans for us as well, if you can.
Yeah, I sent over to Jen the plans, but I have copies of the presentation for you as well.
perfect. John, just, yeah, we're on. Yep. All right, thanks.
I know my job.
All right, you can just give us a quick update. That was it.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Christine Hung, attorney at Reamer and Braunstein. With me tonight, I have Christine DiFiore from the applicant team. We're happy to be back before you. As you may recall, when we opened up at the last hearing, we are before you on an appeal from the building inspector's determination that a proposed freestanding sign that is located in Burlington on a smaller strip of land is not in harmony with the intent and purposes of the sign bylaws, because the building and the actual retail businesses are located in Bedford. The sign is otherwise compliant. The building inspector did not have any issues with the actual freestanding sign. It was more that he felt uncomfortable making a determination that because the sign was located in Burlington, advertising for businesses in Bedford, that he wanted to bring it before the board. So at the last hearing, there were some questions and comments that were raised. One was that the board wanted to see an engineered plan showing either some of the resource areas, because it is adjacent to the river, as well as whether a sign could be placed on the corner of that lot. So we had Alan Amanger, and this was the first page of the handout. So you'll see the town line bifurcates, the line in orange bifurcates the town line, with Burlington being on the right and Bedford being on the left. And then you'll see the proposed sign location that's highlighted in yellow, which is 12.4 inches setback from the lot line. The bylaws require that the sign be placed 10 feet back from the lot line. So it's compliant with the bylaw, and there's actually, it fits just perfectly in that area. You'll also see that there is delineated that it is out of the 100-foot riverfront area, but within the 200-foot riverfront area, so there will be, Concom will need to be involved in terms of getting approval from the Concom, but it is in the outer riparian zone. You'll see the next page 2 of the handout. One, we looked at the location of that corner, and it isn't a preferred location. There are overhead wires, there is a utility box, there is a fire hydrant, and lots of landscaping. So that's not an ideal location for the applicant. They did take a look at it. They really would like that the freestanding sign be at the site access drive off of Middlesex Turnpike. They feel that as motorists are driving down Middlesex Turnpike in either direction, they'll be able to see that freestanding sign more clearly, so that they can then turn into the access drive on Middlesex Turnpike. As you can see, the building is set back far from the street, and there isn't signage. There's one smaller sign on that side, but there is not any signage on the side of the building. All of the signage is fronting on Burlington Road, where all the entrances are. And so really that side of Middlesex Turnpike really needs a signage to direct motorists into the site, and there being a site access drive where the proposed location makes the most sense. The other comment from the board is that they felt uncomfortable, or they did not want to support the businesses in Bedford, and I think that I feel like we can't look at that from such a siloed approach. We have to be more regionally. A lot of the businesses that are coming into Burlington focus on the amenities in the area. Some of the amenities are these restaurants that are in this complex. Others, of course, are on Third Ave. And it's really like, as the brokers do these marketing, it's kind of the radius around the area. We have Broad, Vericel that's coming in, a huge life science, 300 square foot life science building that's being constructed right now, multifamily building being constructed right now. All of these will be amenities for these new residents and also employees of the town to access during their workday. There are sidewalks along there, so they could walk if they wanted to, which you know, so that you don't have to drive. But then also other motorists can come and access the site. You know, and I also thought, like, after this meeting, I was at the MWRA Connection. It was, you know, at the DPW. The Lieutenant Governor, Kim Driscoll, was there. John Sanchez came back, really celebrating the MWRA Connection in Burlington. And that, you know, that was praised as not only a public part and private partnership, but also a regional partnership, because it could not have been done without the support of Lexington. The pipes run through Lexington, and that's what provided us with this MWRA connection, which is actually, I learned that day, is the cleanest water in the nation. And so that, it needs to be, you know, a cooperative. That was with Lexington. Maybe we'll need something from Bedford, maybe. So it has to be like a cooperative outlook. And so I feel that, you know, by supporting businesses in this sense is just a small step in that collaborative, cooperative effort. And then lastly, we discussed other sites in town that might be subject to this split lot. And there is at Middlesex Commons, the Cycle Loft and the Salon by JC. That outbuilding is actually located in Lexington, but there is a tenant panel sign that has the Cycle Loft and the Salon by JC on the Middlesex Common freestanding sign. So it has been, you know, there is a sign that is being advertised for businesses that are in another municipality, so that it has been done. And lastly, I'd just like to read where I think that I believe that there is authority that in section 5.1.2.3 of the zoning bylaw provides lots that are partially in Burlington. When a lot in one ownership is situated in part of the town of Burlington and in part in an adjacent city or town, such as the one that we have here, the provisions, regulations, and restrictions of this bylaw shall be applied to that portion of such lot as lies in the town of Burlington in the same manner as if the entire lot were situated therein. So by my reading of that, it doesn't matter that part of the parcel is in Bedford. You look at the entire lot as if it was in Burlington. And because the lot is dimensionally compliant, that it should be allowed, and that there shouldn't be any discussion about supporting businesses in Bedford. So that is what we have for our presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Sure, thank you. Just to clarify, it's not that I don't want to help the town of Bedford out. We're all partners around here. It's more of the fact that we can't control the signage on Bedford is what I was alluding to at the last meeting. That being said, we'll start. Jeremy, do you want to start with the questions?
Sure. I do appreciate what you've presented here, getting a visual of what the sign looks like, what it looks like at night, I think is very helpful. And while I understand and agree that a holistic approach to the property and what it means for the surrounding area and the businesses is very important, you know, I am curious about what the total signage is going to look like on the property, because that is something we take into account when we look at a whole property. And, you know, I agree with how you read that piece of the law about how we have to look at it all together. So I know when I'm coming down the other way, I see other signs that aren't lit, and I think I've seen them on Google Maps, I've driven by them. You know, is there a plan to add more signage to this property? Is this the only Is this the only sign being added, and is this the only sign that's going to be lit in this manner?
The answer is yes. So there will be no additional signage. There is one retail spot on the front of the building that is vacant. It is 4,000 square feet. It does have frontage on Route 62. That could possibly get signage on the front of the building, like, as the others. You drive down, you see Panera. But there are no plans and no intention to add a monument sign on Route 62 or any other signage. The current, the flatbread space, we have taken down the signage on the side of the building. That would be replaced. But there's nothing new. The only potential new signage would be for the 4,000 square foot of retail space. Something similar to Club Champion. It's about that size.
Okay, and so, also, I think there's a freestanding sign, if I remember correctly, on Route 62 as well.
That is
That's-
there because we don't have a monument sign.
Okay.
So
It's
that.
been there for a while, too.
Yes, it was there when we purchased the property. So we would remove that sign when the monument sign goes up. So we do have to have some signage, particularly for the one restaurant that does not have visibility on Route 62. And that, the purpose of that sign is to provide that lighting.
Okay, so when this goes up, the one on 62 you're saying is coming down?
That would come down, but there's,
Freestanding there.
it's the non-lit sign, yes.
Okay, thank you, that's all the questions I have.
Jeff?
Yeah, so my questions pretty much pertain to the same thing Jeremy just touched on. Going back to this lots partially in Burlington, I just looked that up in the bylaws. So if I were to treat this like it was all in Burlington, I'd have to vote no, because you already have 4 freestanding signs. You have a directory sign at the entrance with flatbread, bamboo, everyone on it. Then Tashan has a sign standing in front of it. Then there's 2 melting pot signs in front of that. You have 4 freestanding signs. I'd have to just vote no right there. So we don't have jurisdiction over Bedford. If we were treating this like it was in Burlington, we'd say, all right, you get 1 directory sign and no other signs, even if by right. You'd be coming back to us every time you want to put a sign on the building, put any sort of directional sign. So I'm gonna just have to be voting no on this. The only thing I would be in favor of is what we had talked about at the last meeting, just something showing direction. 213 Burlington Street with the directional arrows going in. And I believe those are allowed by right. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mark?
The question that I had before was about the sight lines coming in and out of that Middlesex. Right here, you're showing it here, coming in and out of the entrance and exit way here, right? I've done that many, many times, and it is extremely difficult to see with all of the, with this buffer. I think we talked about that the last time. And you said, well, you know, would you have us take down the tree? And I said, well, maybe, now you're just gonna be adding to that, right? And Christine, you said, well, we change the angle. It wouldn't be straight. They still don't know how it would be situated on this area, but I believe that it's really a safety issue coming in from Middlesex Turnpike, to be seeing people coming out of there, and coming from that parking lot, trying to get out of there. I almost inevitably, I think I said this last time, I turn right, because I can't get across that road to get back down Bedford Street towards Burlington. Right, so it's just to me, a safety issue in terms of the sight lines.
So the sign is set back 12.4 inches from the curb.
Still gonna be
And I don't
mean,
think, so when you pull up, you would pull out, like, I don't,
Yeah,
You're still,
It's
you're
far behind.
still gonna, as you come up to any roadway, right? And you have anything in front of you, you know, you have the trash area, you have signs now, you have trees, there are so many problems with the sight lines in that area, and I think it's a dangerous area anyway, because people are traveling at light speed around that corner from Middlesex Turnpike to get on, I mean, from Bedford Street or Burlington Street, whatever it is, to get onto Middlesex Turnpike. They're flying around that corner, all right? So I just think you're just adding to a safety problem there.
so if you're looking at this plan right here, which is on page 3, the sign would be on that corner area. So it's, as you're coming up out of the access drive, the sign would be behind you, so it wouldn't be in your sight line distance. It's actually the tree there is probably more in
But I'm
the
just
sight
saying
line.
that you're adding to it, Attorney Hung. I just don't, I just think you're adding to all of the barrier that is on that piece of property. I do actually like my brother's, his theory, which, you know, you brought in the bylaw, and you said, well, look at it all together. That's the way the bylaw says, if it's on the line, all right? And now he's informed me, I'm informed, that you already have, if we're to do it that way, it's pretty straightforward. You have 4 freestanding signs. We only allow 1. Right? That, you know, that's actually more persuasive to me than even my safety argument, but no, I just don't see my way through to putting a sign there when I believe that putting signs on the side of the building, right, would be just as, work just as well. You're gonna get people who go to this particular place, they know the area. They know the pizza place, you said it's gonna be a new pizza place. It's Bamboo, and all of those front places, they get plenty of coverage, all right, Panera, and, you know, people are able to see those very easily.
But not from Middlesex Turnpike, they would not be able to see them. That's only from Route
I
62.
still say that it's kind of a unique area, quite frankly, because you know what's in there. You pretty much, if you've been there, you know what's there. And anyway, I don't agree with.
I think if you drive down Middlesex Turnpike and look at the other signage, what we're requesting, the first sign you're gonna see is Third Avenue. That is the other retail sign. That's the only other retail sign, and we are asking for a retail sign. You see that, then you see the Blue Sky Drive signs, which are closer to the road, arguably more of a
Those are
distraction.
PDDs though, aren't they?
They're the same, we're asking
Those
for.
are in,
Yeah, those are all
PDDs.
by right, so. They came here.
Yeah,
with-
part of
different
the
set of
plan
laws.
development, it's a different bylaw that controls.
I'm trying to address the visual and the clutter. The sign we're looking at is smaller than that. It's the exact same sight line. It's actually pushed back much further than any of those signs. So it's the same sight line, but back further and smaller. So if those aren't causing a problem, I would,
Those are a different set of rules, so.
Yeah, so just
but
to
I
clarify.
understand they're a different set of
I
rules.
think she's just
but
talking
it's
about
still
from a
the-
sight
I'm-
line
I'm
perspective.
just talking about design, sight line, saying, you don't want a sign close to the road, or it causes clutter. All of those things exist with the other directional signage that you're seeing on the road. I understand it's a different bylaw, but it is still a very similar purpose.
And I'd like to add that I think the reason why there is a requirement that the sign be placed 10 feet back from the lot line is due to the sightline distance, so that there is adequate sightline distance. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had that. So I think that the way that the bylaw is drafted right now takes into account that safety measure in terms of as you come into an intersection or an access drive, that the sign is placed back 10 feet from the lot line so that there is that sightline safety. That is the reason why they have that measurement in there. And our proposed sign is set back even further, 12.4 inches back.
You mean 12.4 feet?
Yeah, I mean, 12 feet, 4 inches back.
We're asking
How come nobody laughed when I said that?
Mark, anything else? Go.
Yeah, let me just clarify the setback. You're 12 foot 4 inches from the lot line to
Yes,
the curb.
It
The
is
curb is
lot.
probably another 20 feet further out.
Yeah.
So you're probably from the curb to the face of the
We are-
sign, you're well over 30 feet. You're probably close to 35
thank you, Joe,
feet.
thank you,
Yes.
Joe.
But your engineer did not put that here, so it's not scalable. It's just, I can see it's double the width, so it's.
Yeah, I think that we had the engineer just
You
do it
are
from the lot
clo-
line.
You're about 35 feet from the curb line, so you're behind the tree.
Yes, yes.
The sign is gonna be closer to the dumpsters, not in the tree.
The sign is, if you look at this,
Your tree line is in the town setback.
it is really in this corner.
That's a
right?
street tree.
Yeah, it's right here. This is where the sign is.
Yeah, but he's asking about the tree. See, I don't know if it looks like from this that the tree would be in on town property.
I was just correcting her footage there. So the other thing I have is, there's a
Yeah, so
third
he
bay
said
bin added to it.
Yes, this is the,
There was the existing dumpster spots is 2 bays, right? There was a third bay added but never finished. Is there a reason why that was never finished?
it was added for flatbread to put wood in there.
Wood? It's still kinda unfinished.
Yes,
It was never finished. You can see they set it back to apply the red brick, but they never did.
I believe, and this was before my time.
Yeah, and
So-
that's encroaching more into the setback without a permit, so. Is that planned to be finished?
I do not know the answer to that.
All right. And one more for you. You're advertising 15-foot high, but the plans are 14-foot high. You're advertising 6'8" wide, and the plan's 72 inches.
That-
So the sign's smaller than what you're advertising?
Yeah, I think that was based upon comments from at the last hearing, that they thought that the sign was too high, so then we went back and try to decrease it. And, is it narrower? Yeah. So decrease
Yeah,
it by
I
a
think we
foot.
had asked last time to
Right.
show us something that was a little bit smaller.
So the original proposed freestanding sign was 15 feet, but now the revised one is 14 feet.
14, so it's smaller. Okay. I am good. You're on deck.
Thanks, thanks.
Very nice.
I have a couple comments to make. But Attorney Hung, so I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I did watch it. And I listened to it. The last hearing, you were asked the question if there's gonna be more signs to go on the building. You said yes at the last meeting, and you were asked, why didn't you go to Bedford first, you came to Burlington? You went, we just chose Burlington first. So I wonder where it's different this week, where now there's not gonna be any other signs.
So the reason why the way that I remember it was that they want this sign in Burlington because we had talked about this, like they would like the sign in Burlington because it's at that access drive, and that's an important kind of entry point to the retail complex. And so that was like the number one, like the most important sign for them. And then, so you're saying that, were there gonna be any other signs in Bedford, or?
On the building in and of itself. One of the concerns I heard through the last meeting was that unlike any other signs we put in Burlington, we really can't put too many conditions on this because Bedford can do whatever they want.
Right.
Way I heard the testimony at the last time was that, yeah, we're gonna have signs over there in Bedford, those are probably by right. So we wanted to come get this first. I'm not crazy about that idea. I would rather see you exhaust all the Bedford signage that you could possibly have, and then let us decide whether or not this is something that's needed. That's what I would like to see. I'd love to see you withdraw without prejudice, get your stuff done in Bedford, and then come back and talk to us.
We don't have anything to do in Bedford, though, at this. The only possible thing that could happen in Bedford is if an additional retail tenant takes over the vacant space on 62.
So there'll be no more there'll be no more signage coming up than currently what's on the building right now, other than this sign. And that's it, unless a tenant changes. Is that what you're saying?
Right, so tenant changes, and just so that I'm clear, there is one vacant space on 62,
Okay.
on Burlington Road, that is a possible retail space.
Okay, would they have signage on their building facing 62?
It depends on what they are. It's vacant.
Okay.
If a retail.
So we're only talking about one sign.
It's only one sign, it would
John,
be
can I
on the
mind if I jump
building.
in for a second?
But
What
then
about-
on the, for the pizza place,
what
would
about
want,
flatbread?
would want a sign too, is that what you're saying?
They're on the back. They're not in the front of the
Okay.
building.
But there'll still be a sign on for flatbread somewhere, or whoever's taking over that space.
Yes, so the way that, the flatbread space only has frontage on Middlesex Turnpike. There is a sign on the building, it's not very big, that does direct you to that was there. We've taken it down because flatbread is not there. But they do not have any signage at all on Burlington Road. They don't have frontage there for any signage.
Okay, so on the signs that, this new diagram that you showed us,
Yes.
there's two empty spaces.
So,
So they'll be reserved for that tenant and for the pizza place.
yes,
You reserved for them, okay.
that is the intention.
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying some of
Okay.
that for me. I would like to add that I'm in agreement with Mr. DeMona that the most I'd like to see is just the address sign over there. A smaller one, much smaller, lower to the ground. In this day and age, I don't believe you need as much signage as you have. I believe you have plenty of signage on the building. Nobody's driving around saying, oh, look, there's a Milton Sun. All the business people that are up on Third Ave and all those buildings, Oracle, all those companies, they have GPS, they have Waze. They go right to their restaurant, takes them right to it. I would be happy with a directory sign at that entrance over there. But I'm not crazy about this tower sign at all, to be honest with you. That's right, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, since COVID, restaurants have just suffered so much, and they just need all the, kind of signage and advertising that they can. And, I understand your point about you look at Waze and it takes you there, but you also, when you're driving around, you look up and you actually need to see the signage to say, I'm in the right place, as you're coming down.
You don't need an address sign for that. You don't. It tells you the address.
But-
Tells you the address that it's at. Your GPS takes you right to it, and then you see the sign for the address, you pull in. Without all that extra signage. I mean, there is a ton of signage in that corner anyway, not on your side of the street across. I don't get what's going on across the street, how that's there with all those signs, but they are. I mean, I'm not zoning police, but we're zoning board. And I would just as soon try to minimize the signage.
Yeah, and and I guess one more thing to add is that a lot of these restaurants, because it is so difficult nowadays, they demand, they want the signage, as part of their viability, and that's what they request. When they're looking at sites, when you're marketing these sites to rent, you probably know, they want to know, well, what kind of signage do I have? Do we have a freestanding sign on Middlesex
Telling me
Turnpike?
Bamboo didn't know they couldn't have a sign there? They came in and spent all that money and did everything they were gonna do? They're just now finding out they couldn't have a sign there? I don't,
I'm just
They're
saying
asking
that
for
it's,
it.
yeah.
It is
it's-
really.
be
this is-
asking for it, but a lot of people ask for stuff that they can't really have. I don't know, sounds like there's a consensus on the board, pretty much, but I'm all set.
Thanks, John. So I just have a couple of comments, and then we can open it up to the public a little bit. So, in the new packet, it looks like you're looking for 2 signs? We only advertised for 1.
No, we're only looking for one sign.
You're only looking
One
for-
freestanding sign.
Okay. So the one that just has the address, the 213 address, is that,
That's the sign.
oh, that's the side of the
Side of
sign.
it.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
That makes more sense. So, other than that, I don't have a ton of questions. I tend to agree with some of the board members. I think that a directional sign with the address would be the best way to solve this concern right now. But I think that while we wait, I will open up the public hearing. If there's anybody here to speak for or against the applicant, see anyone standing up there?
I think if you just start talking, it'll go.
Thank you. My name is Melissa Tintagos. I work as the Economic Development Director for the town of Burlington. And in terms of this docket item, I submitted a memo to the ZBA for your consideration. I don't know if that's been read into the record already.
I have it. I'm gonna read it in at the end of the.
Oh, okay, thank you. But in terms of kind of my role and my obligations for economic development for the town, I wanted to bring 3 points up in terms of access to amenities, our regional economic development efforts, and then obviously our neighborly kind of consideration with regard to this issue in particular. I think with regard to a lot of the points that have been talked about tonight, signage overall on the site with, in light of our Burlington's eyes, safety, these things are all very important, and I appreciate this board really taking time to be thoughtful about how we approach approval on these types of things. But I think with regard to how we are looking at a business-friendly Burlington, those 3 points that I mentioned in terms of access to amenities, most brokers look at a region and map out office availability for Burlington, Bedford, Billerica in a radius. There is no municipal boundary, and it's important for us to understand that that's the cooperation. And as much as we have our proprietary or municipal kind of rules, if we are looking to uplift the region in a beneficial way for jobs, commercial tax base, it's important that we think about how we are relating to one another in that sense. I think so that was part of the communication I wrote in the memo. The second piece was about our regional efforts. So we are part and we pay dues to Middlesex 3. Middlesex 3 is a regional organization that is doing the same work that I just mentioned, trying to work to uplift the businesses, the job opportunities in the region without, most people see it quite invisible, our municipal boundaries and our bylaws. So it does become difficult as a property owner or as a business owner to understand some of those differences. For example, you mentioned the PDD. We allow that just, the next block over, different signage rules than we allow in this area. So those things are hard for people to understand when they're trying to do business, and the employees are coming from everywhere. So they are coming not only for the job itself, but for the amenity base. And then so that everyone knows, there's almost 40,000 vehicles that pass on Middlesex Turnpike every day. That's been a count by VHB, so I think that's important to understand why that signage has been important for a lot of businesses down Middlesex Turnpike. 40,000 cars, it's 40,000 eyes. Those are people that not only just know the area, but that may do business in the area. I think the other thing that we've been thinking about, at least in the Economic Development Office, is office vacancy. So office vacancy is approaching almost a near high in 20 years, approaching, depending on how you do the boundary, it's about 16 to 18% office vacancy. And so with that, it's a very difficult and much more important to show what you have to offer to attract the tenants. And attracting tenants means having that rent that comes in all the time that then allows for income generation that allows for us to have the property tax income that we benefit from the town of Burlington. So these are some of the things I thought that were important for the board to kind of at least hear and have under their consideration as they think about this choice moving forward. And the last thing, as I think, Christine had mentioned, is that just kind of basic neighborly cooperation. So what we've done recently, and it was very much touted with the Lieutenant Governor, was the MWRA connection. And the majority of that connection was exclusively in Lexington. Lexington, DPW bore the brunt of complaints, police, resident issues, and the benefit was exclusively to Burlington. So if this was the same situation, I just would like to think that in terms of a cooperative neighborly effort, that might be taken into consideration as we move forward on this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else in the audience? If not, I will read in the memo from Melissa, is it Tintakoulis? Is it? Perfect. So I'm writing on behalf of the Economic Development Office to ask that the ZBA consider allowing the placement of a sign for commercial property located just beyond Burlington's boundary at 0 Bedford Street. While the businesses in this commercial strip may not be in our jurisdiction, allowing the requested sign would benefit our town's commercial positioning and serve our residents. Please consider the following. Access to amenities. Permitting the placement of the sign would serve as a valuable tool to raise awareness among employees and residents about the nearby amenities. Moreover, commercial brokers play an integral role in marketing Burlington's commercial spaces by emphasizing the amenities in the immediate vicinity, regardless of municipal boundaries. The visual impression of a rich, amenity-filled area not only facilitates leasing, but also reduces vacancy, contributing to the vibrancy of our town. Burlington is also a member of Regional Economic Coalition, Middlesex 3, committed to supporting and promoting commerce in our area. Supporting neighborhood businesses enhances our position with this coalition and reinforces our efforts to support a thriving regional economy along Route 3. Neighborly consideration. By permitting this sign, we would show a neighborly spirit and willingness to collaborate for the good of our residents and businesses in the spirit of cooperation. Neighboring municipalities must often collaborate on grant efforts, transportation issues, and utilities. Allowing the sign would facilitate goodwill in promoting collaboration between our neighboring communities. I can provide additional information or attend a future meeting if that helps to share perspectives on this item. Thank you for your consideration. All right, seeing nobody else for the public hearing, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So any more discussion?
Well, I think we should talk about it some more because it doesn't look like this sign's gonna fly, but I wish you would consider talk to us more about a directory sign over there that some of us could vote on.
You mean a directory sign not in this location, in another location?
No, in that location, but a much smaller sign. I don't believe you need, I'm not voting for this sign. Okay, so let me just put it to you that way. Unless it changes, I'll be voting no. So, but now is the time, if you want to change it, to either agree to it or not, and
Yeah, I just think that there's people on the board that would be more amenable to a sign that just had the address on it that was smaller, less, with a lot less wording. Yeah. less
That really
interesting.
doesn't serve our purpose, though. I mean, the purpose of this sign, this is a retail location. And as I said, you know, the other retail location has big signs for those restaurants. And we need to promote those restaurants, and we need people on Network Drive to see that they're there. I understand you see them if you're driving the other way, but that's not where the traffic is. The purpose is to have people on Network Drive see that there are restaurants there. That's the purpose, not so that they can use their GPS to get there. They need to see they're there. This is marketing, and it's what retail tenants and retail businesses expect.
And I also like to add that we talked about the Waze feature, but the Waze feature is to get to a specific location. There could be drivers along Middlesex Turnpike that just see the sign and say, oh, there's a Panera Bread, I'm gonna go in there now. Not having that as a specific end destination, but they'll see, oh, the Melting Pot, I see that, oh, I'm gonna turn in. The pizza place, I'm gonna turn in. And it could not be a final destination, but they could be en route somewhere else and say, oh, you know what, I haven't been to the Melting Pot in a long time. I see the sign, I'm gonna turn in and go because it'll be fun to take the kids to do fondue or something. So those are also examples of where this sign is needed because you don't have it on the Middlesex Turnpike. And as Melissa Tentaklis said, there are 40,000 cars, vehicles driving down Middlesex Turnpike every single day. Some of them are employees, some of them are residents, others are passerbys that don't know the area very well.
Okay, yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. However, most of them, I would argue, are taking a left. And you're gonna see all those signs as they head towards Route 3. And you could take a left into the building before they hit Route 3, right? I mean, there's other ways to see those signs on the building.
What do you mean?
You know,
they
if they
take
come
a-
down to the end of Middlesex Turnpike, all right, they take a left. That is very a sign-rich area right there for your building.
Right, and that's precisely why we need it on Middlesex Turnpike, so that they can turn into the access drive. There's a light right there, they can turn into the access drive, rather than stopping at the light, taking a left on Route 62, and that first entrance drive, you have to cut across 4 lanes of traffic to get in, so most likely that's dangerous. So then they have to go further down, and then there's another access drive further down 62. But that's only if they know the area.
Doesn't that almost cut back to John's argument about a directional sign being sufficient?
But it also goes back to my sign, that if you're not going there for a purpose, that if you're just driving by and you need to see those signs that have those restaurants there.
I think what John is saying, if, and I don't know whether the other members are amenable, but if the sign was smaller, a directional sign was smaller, it would serve your purpose.
I don't.
You say it won't.
It will, I have
So
to
are you-
respectfully disagree.
So are you saying a smaller sign, like a directional just with the address and
traffic
not with
control
the,
sign.
and not with the tenants on there? Yeah, their purpose is that they want to advertise and show, and from a traffic control as well, show the tenants.
how long have these tenants been in the building?
Panera has been there since this particular Panera owner moved in November of 2021. Bamboo, I don't know, I wasn't here.
For a long time, for a long time. These aren't people that are coming to a building saying,
Tashan
get
opened
me
in
more.
20
Tashan's at least 3 years old.
No, they signed their lease during COVID, so they opened up in November of 2021 was when they first started serving.
Right, so these aren't tenants that are
But-
considering coming in if you get signs. Your place is basically full. You've got the pizza store coming in, and you have one more tenant that you're already talking to about it.
And
So it's
we-
not like you're not drawing in the business, you're getting your tenants.
These tenants has still not recovered to the revenue stream that they had in 2019. So I can't speak to Tashan because they weren't there, and Panera is a different owner. But neither Melting Pot or Bamboo are getting the business that they had. So they're asking, if we were someplace else, this is what a restaurant expects. No matter where you are, you're seeing a Panera has a monument sign someplace that's directing people in there. Whether they're someplace else in Burlington or in a different town, these restaurants all expect this. They have it at 3rd Avenue. They have a monument sign that directs people into where they are. And I'm sure people know that Nino's, they could put that in and find it by using GPS, but they're not. You've got it on a monument sign, and that is what a retail tenant expects. We have office tenants in this building. We're not asking to put them on the sign. We have, I'm sure they'd love it, but we're not doing that. We're not going to put our labs and the other tenants in that building on here. This is really for the restaurants.
And I think it's consistent with all the other retail signs in Burlington, from Middlesex
Excuse me,
Commons.
Attorney, but you know that we don't set precedent. But you're gonna try, you know that the zoning board of appeals doesn't set precedent. Sometimes we say yes to somebody here, and right next door we say no to them. And you know that, but you're trying to use that as part of your hardship because it happened down the street. But we don't even consider that.
So I have to refocus the board back to why we're before you. We're before you because we're appealing the building inspector's decision. He does not have any issue with the sign. The sign is compliant with the bylaws. The only reason why we're before you is because he does not feel that the freestanding sign in Burlington advertising for businesses in Bedford is in harmony with the intent and purposes of the bylaw. We can go through the point by point of what the purposes of the bylaw. I'm happy to go through
If you'd like
each
to read it
point.
again, you can. I
No,
understand the points.
So it's not the sign that is an issue. The dimensions of the sign is not an issue with the building inspector. It is solely the fact that it is a sign in Burlington advertising for businesses in Bedford. And so if there is an understanding that that's okay, then it should be approved.
I totally disagree with you.
I completely disagree
I'll
with that.
interrupt on that for a second. The sign doesn't comply at 14 feet. A directory sign needs to be 10 feet or less.
The bylaws in the IG zoning district, the requirements for a freestanding sign are that it be back 10 feet from the lot line and that the tenant panels be no greater than 20 square feet. And that is what this sign is.
I just read it, 10 feet in height,
That's very,
10 feet back from the lot line
and 10 feet in height.
in the IG zoning district.
Yes. That's what I just read.
No, it's not.
I think you're looking at, it's a freestanding sign, it's different.
Wait, now I just lost it because I scrolled. Give me 1 second.
So, now that the sign is before us, we have the ability to look at it from a bunch of different angles. We're not looking at it just as from what the building inspector, at least I'm not, just from what the building inspector nodded on. And for me, I agree with Mark that it is a bit of a safety issue. I agree with the rest of the board that it's probably too large for the area. And I think that the only thing that I would vote favorably for is some sort of directional sign that shows the address. And if that's unamenable, I think that, the applicant can either withdraw or we can make a motion.
Can I just clear it for the record that general industrial freestanding signs In A, no freestanding sign shall be permitted except temporary or directory signs which shall be 10 feet or more from the property line. B, a temporary sign, so this is not a temporary sign, so B does not apply. Or C, a freestanding sign may be permitted for purposes of business directory, providing that no more than 20 square feet shall be permitted for each business. Those are the requirements for a freestanding sign in the IG zoning district. So I just want the record to be clear that we are compliant, the sign is compliant.
All right, thank you. I don't have anything else.
No, I've made up my mind already.
All right. Any motions?
I make a motion to deny.
Think we
Wait
should-
a minute,
Wait,
don't, wait a minute.
Can I
Point
just
of order.
confirm?
Sure.
We have to make motions to approve,
All right,
and then you can either deny it or not.
all right.
But you want to give him one more chance before we go to,
Non-discuss.
just let him
Try.
withdraw and come back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, so I'm happy to continue if they want to come back with like a smaller sign that, you know.
And I'd like to get an understanding of every sign on the property, if we're supposed to look at the property as a whole. I personally am not necessarily against where the sign is or the intent of the sign, but I think understanding all the signs on the property and all the signage on the property would be important, because one of the things that, you know, I took to heart when I joined this board is we don't want to have our town look like the Vegas Strip, so we want to understand what signs are on the property. You know, in my professional life, I do help source industrial real estate. I understand driving around an area, you know, Melissa, to your points about the importance of what are you getting yourself into when you're signing a lease like that. I think it's important, but, you know, while that's important, the counterpoint is we can't have the Vegas Strip here in Burlington. We can't have lights on the side of a building one day light up out in another town, lighting up our roads against the intent of what we want. So I think understanding everything that's on the property so we can look at it and judge it like we do any other property in Burlington is very important.
So, so are you waiting for us to,
Yeah.
I would at least ask for a continuance to our next meeting.
I know, that's what I'm
While you
thinking.
gather your thoughts, and then decide, you want to withdraw, you want to go forward, whatever you want
So
to do.
just so that I'm clear, for the most part, everyone, so if we took a straw vote, it would most likely be denied. Is that what I think that's what I'm kind of,
We certainly can't do that, but I would say that I'm definitely not in favor of the current sign. I think it's too large.
And I'll come out and say I'm not in favor of the current sign as well. So that right there is, it's over. But we're not looking to do that to you, we're looking to we need more work.
okay, so in terms of then coming back with another sign then,
Not another sign, another directory sign.
So the directory sign would only be a non-illuminated directory sign that has the address on an address, no tenants on there.
Well, if it was externally
A
illuminated, I'd be happy
traffic
with it.
control sign.
Yeah, and I would be amenable to have it lit up because of that, the way that area is.
Yeah, I have no problem with it, especially if it was externally lit, or
Yeah, I would definitely like to.
sign there with
see
your
something.
address, that should do it. So at least take the 2 weeks and think about
right.
it.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we
we'll
vote.
continue it, and we'll continue.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to continue this hearing to our next
11:21.
11:21.
Seconded.
All right, motion has been made and seconded for 0 Bedford Street to be continued to our 11/21/2023 meeting on or after 7:30. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, need that.
All right, the next hearing on our agenda for tonight is a new hearing for 12 Duncan Road. If the applicant can come up here and Mark, if you can read it
Yes,
into the
sir.
record.
This is a new hearing, number 2320, 12 Duncan Road. The applicant is requesting the building department to enforce the town's zoning bylaw for 2 permanent structures, sheds that are encroaching on his property line at 7 Burton Road, per the building inspector's denial letter dated September 7th, 2023, regarding the request for zoning enforcement at 12 Duncan Road. Based on the relevant merits of this case and zoning bylaw, section 9.1.4, the building inspector will not take any enforcement action regarding the above mentioned.
Thank you. If you could just introduce yourself and kind of give us an overview of the application?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Vaskan Kabadjian. I'm the property owner at 7 Burton Road. I've written down my statement, just so I don't miss any points. I hope you guys don't mind if I read through it.
Sure, go for it.
But, so, as I mentioned, I'm here today to appeal 2 structures that my neighbor has put up at 12 Duncan Road in their backyard. One is a shed that's less than 3 feet away from my property line, in addition to another structure, which seems to be a greenhouse. I'm not sure. And those are the pictures that I'm circulating right now amongst all of you. To give you some context, my house is at the end of a cul-de-sac and on the right side of the road when you enter Burton Road, and my neighbor's backyard is on the right side of my house. His backyard is right on the right side of my house, so both of our lots are approximately half an acre. What stemmed all this was when I visited a friend's house in Burlington at the end of July. I noticed that he had a shed in his backyard, and he asked me why. I asked him why he could not put it closer to his existing fence. He said that it needed to be 15 feet away based on what the town of Burlington mandated. He also said that he put up his shed back in 2020. A few days later, like you mentioned, Mark, on August 1st, I called the town hall, and the individual I spoke with told me to reach out to Martin Allen, who's the senior building inspector, to investigate my concern. I also read through the town of Burlington's bylaws to better understand their rules around the shed distances. I didn't hear back from him for about 2 weeks until I emailed him on August 15th. He wrote back and requested that I call him, and during our conversation, he mentioned that the town's previous building inspectors verbally authorized the sheds and that permits were given to my neighbor. When I asked him why there was no variance to make an exception to the bylaws, he could not really answer me. So on the same day, I came to the town hall to get copies of the permit that he stated, but Mark Dupel, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his last name, the inspector of buildings said he could not find any documents or any permits. And so on August 22nd, I exchanged messages with Mark, and his response to me about the permits was, there are no permits. Apparently, they were given a verbal okay, and that was past practice until about a year ago. If you are requesting enforcement, kindly go online to the town clerk's webpage and fill out the online form. Thank you. Since the online form was not working correctly, I wrote a letter to Amy Warfield, the town clerk, requesting enforcement of the 15 feet written by the bylaws. She received a letter on August 28th, and then on September 7th, I received a letter from Mark stating that, as was explained to you earlier, 12 Duncan was given a verbal okay from the prior building inspector that permits were not required for sheds under a size of 200 square feet, and was not informed by the inspector of any zoning requirements. And this had been the past practice by the department. He then says that you're also informed that this department for the past year now requires applications for zoning permits for any size shed, et cetera, to make sure this proposed location complies with zoning setbacks, et cetera, and help avoid issues such as this. The letter ended by giving me the option of appealing to the town of Burlington Zoning Board of Appeals, and here we are. Based on the email messages, the letter from the building inspector, and after reading the bylaws, some of the things that he mentioned are vague and confusing to me. One, the structure that seems to be like a greenhouse was built this year. How was it verbally approved when the bylaws were written in 2022? The bylaws also do not state anything about permits not required for sheds under 200 square feet. If that was the practice from the previous building inspector, it should have been captured and or carried over to the existing bylaws. So my concerns with the sheds are the following. There are no permits on record or any documentation that the current building inspectors could produce to show that the previous building inspectors verbally approved the sheds and distances. This leaves no accountability to prove that these structures were actually approved, and for argument's sake, anyone who had a relationship with the previous building inspectors could argue the same. The brown shed that you see in the picture is less than 3 feet from my property line and approximately 18 feet from my home. I've called several other municipalities, and the average distance they mandate for sheds is 5 feet away from property lines. I would presume one of the reasons that there are specific distances requirements for erecting these structures would be a case of any flammable or hazardous materials being stored to avoid it causing damage to neighboring properties. And then thirdly, the greenhouse was approved with these bylaws in place. I'm still having difficulty understanding how that happened. So I appreciate everyone's time to hear my appeal. I hope that the town can come up with a fair and just solution, and I'm free to and available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Before I open it up to the board for questions, I just want to clarify that essentially this variance this appeal is to appealing the building inspector's decision, not necessarily, a variance to approve any type of setbacks or anything like that. So I want to make sure that that's clear. Just, all we're doing is reviewing this to see if the building inspector's denial is appropriate or not, essentially. So with that, John, you want to start?
Well, I have thoughts and opinions on it, but I'd like to hear from the rest of the people in the audience first, and then I'll comment.
Joe?
Yeah, kind of baffled with this, what control we have at this point.
Yeah.
As far as, the install, this is, building department issue, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but we'll Mark?
So it's Vesken? Vesken. I'm a little confused about the chronology of the bylaw itself. You said something about the bylaw was enacted in 2022?
Correct.
Was there, and so the building inspector is telling you that prior to 2022, what were the rules?
Basically just said that
And was
anyone could come in and they would get a verbal, say, hey, can I put a shed in the back? Say, okay, go ahead. That's basically
But
my
I
understanding.
thought there was a square footage issue, if it was less than 200
Correct.
square feet.
Cor-
And so are these less than 200 square feet or no?
Is the shed 200
Yeah,
square
the
feet?
sheds, whatever the structures are they less than,
I don't
200 square
know. I
feet.
haven't gone on site to his property I haven't gone to see it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, as soon as we open the public hearing, we can call you up and do it.
Yeah, the plastic one's definitely under 200 square feet.
Can you see these sheds from your house?
Those are my pictures from my house.
Yeah, but these pictures aren't from his house, these pictures are from somebody else's house. Look at the arborvitae's between the two houses.
yeah, your house is not on the other side of the arborvitae's, is it?
These
Your
pictures
house is
came from
behind
someone
that?
else's
So
property.
that picture is from
Every one of them.
from my street from my neighbor, to show you.
This
how
is your
close-
house right here?
Yeah, that's my house. Yep,
But that's,
All right, so you're saying this is your house?
correct.
All right, and so are there are these, they
Arborvitae's.
look like they're 15-foot arborvitae's that are,
but the front of your house faces the back, correct?
The front of my house faces Burton Road, of the
This is
street.
Burton Road.
Yeah.
Your driveway, where you come in, is from up the back, right?
No.
You don't
I
have a driveway up there?
from the back. I don't have a driveway. So my driveway is, my garage is from Burton Road.
so when did you begin residing at that address?
2015.
And so were those structures, they existing when you?
No, sir.
And what year did they go up?
I'm not sure about the brown one. However, the greenhouse, I think it's a greenhouse, was just built this year, 2023.
So, I'm gonna wait to hear from the
Sure,
homeowner.
sure.
Jeff?
I want to wait and hear what the public has to say.
Thank you. Jeremy?
No comment at this time. I'll wait.
A couple of my questions are answered. So you purchased your house in 2015. Greenhouse came in at 2023, and you're not sharing the shed.
Correct.
But it was after 2015.
Correct.
Those pictures one more time?
Yep.
So, all right, the greenhouse, we'll call it a greenhouse for now. These arborvitaes, these on your property or?
Where your finger is right now, that is my property. I just wanted to, I took that picture to
Oh,
show,
okay.
I just took that picture to show you
Okay.
from a different angle, what it looks like,
Yep.
close to my property line.
So, I just want to make sure I got this right, so.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. So this greenhouse, I see a little picture of the
That
fence.
is, yeah, so I have a tree there.
Yep.
So I went through the trees to take a picture, but that's basically the property, the property line is that fence.
So, those trees and the 15-foot arborvitaes, those are yours?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So, I think it sounds like the board would like to hear from the public, so we'll open up the public hearing at this time. If there's anybody to speak for or against, you can come up to the microphone, introduce yourself, and speak on behalf or against.
Hi, my name's Joseph Renzella. I live at 12 Duncan Road. I have buildings in question. I have some paperwork I'd like to give you guys. It might clear up some information.
Sure.
Also the plot plan on this, so you have a better understanding of how the property's set up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can read that. If you have any questions, you could ask me. And
You just need to, sorry, you just need to stand behind the microphone so the public can hear.
The shed is 7 foot 9 inches by 19 feet 9 inches exactly, okay? It's called an 8x20 shed, which is, say, 160 square feet. Before I constructed this, bought the shed, we went to the building department, and they said any structure 160 square feet or less did not require a permit. So I did not get a permit, okay? I put the shed up, and there was no issues, nobody said anything. And then about 2 years later, Laskin decided he didn't like the shed. He called the building department. The inspector showed up at my house, and he says, your neighbor called me this morning complaining about the shed. I said, been up for 2 years. He said, well, I have to look into this. Yes, okay. I took him up, I showed him the shed, and somebody told him it was a permanent structure, which it is not. It's a plastic shed from floor to roof, okay? It is 3 feet off the lot line, okay? The reason I put it there, those trees, I have some pictures I'll show you, those, that you saw them in his picture, the trees. His trees come down and then they end, and then his fence probably starts from about 10 feet away from the trees. He has a white plastic fence. So that part's open, and that open part, I'll show you this too. This block, you could have, I didn't print up 7 copies of these, so if I can just pass them around. That open part with the shed, between those trees, where the trees end and where his fence starts, are 2 air conditioners. And while the inspector was there, his air conditioners were going. And I said, you know, this was the best place for my shed because it's close to my driveway and it helps block the noise from the shed, from the air conditioners. And the inspector heard the air conditioners go off, and then he's looking at the shed, and he said, well, this is a plastic shed. This is not a permanent structure. I said, I know. He said, well, I said, do I have to move it? He said, well, no, because of the noise of the air conditioners, you can leave it where it is, and it's not an issue. Okay?
What year was that?
2019.
That was the year the inspector came out, or was that the,
Excuse me?
was that the year the inspector came out, or was that the year?
2019 when the inspector came out.
Okay.
The
And-
shed was erected at either 2016, 2017. I think I got 2017 I put down, but I wasn't sure.
All right, continue.
Now, in approximately, I think 2 years ago or a year ago, I'm not sure exactly, I thought I wanted to build a greenhouse. Well, she has a garden, we had trouble with the animals, so we said, well, I'll build a greenhouse for you. Instead, her and my son-in-law, they went down to Harbor Freight, they saw a greenhouse, and well, back up a little, when I was gonna build a greenhouse, I told her, I said, if you have a chance, go down and see the building inspector, see if we have to pull a permit for it. They went down to the building inspector's office, and they gave her this book, which I photocopied on, I think it's the 3rd page there. You'll see the cover, and then you'll see the two, I didn't photocopy the whole book, the pages are relevant, okay? It says for a greenhouse, a permit is not required if it's under 200 square feet. The greenhouse is 10 feet by 12 feet, which is 120. Okay? It has a dirt floor. There's no concrete foundations on any of these buildings. I got a notice from the building department that this gentleman complained about the greenhouse, and I went down to the building department, brought the book they gave me. In fact, the part they gave me, they actually highlighted for my daughter. The highlight didn't come out on the page, but I did copy that page. It's the After this page is one page that shows things that do not require a permit. The next page is the one stating that the greenhouse is covered exclusively with plastic film. This does not apply if the greenhouse is used for large assemblies of people, which it's not. And they said we didn't need a permit. Now, I put the greenhouse where I did for the simple fact is this gets the most sun in my yard. Okay? I have a garage there, and I have big trees behind it. And after the sun gets past those big trees, from about 10, 11 o'clock till the sun goes down, that area is full of sun. And I didn't think it was going to be an issue with anybody because you cannot see the greenhouse from his property. I can't see his house. If I stand at the greenhouse and look at his house, I can't see his house. Unless I look up over the trees, I can see the peak of his house. So I don't know what the issue is. It's, the greenhouse is 10 feet off the property line. There's a black chain link fence. I don't know if it showed up in the pictures, but that black chain link fence is on my property. Okay? The trees are on his property. The fence is on my property. So if you measure from the fence to the greenhouse, it's probably like 9 feet, 9 feet 6 or something. But the property line is on the other side of that. I know that for sure because before he moved in his house, a gentleman who used to live there was Mr. Moulton. I knew him. He passed away. And when he passed away, Dan Murray bought the house. He tore it down and he built the larger house at 7th River Road. And he had to have all the property surveyed. And he had the stakes in the ground, where he got the stakes, I made sure my chain link fence was on my side of the stakes. And so it's not on or encroaching any part of his property. Okay? If you have any questions, we'll let me know.
I think you answered most of the questions that I was gonna ask, but I'll open it up to the board if, there are any other questions down here. Joe or Mark?
So I'm just trying to go ahead.
No, no, sir, no, sir.
So I'm just trying to understand your argument, which is basically it doesn't meet the requirements for a permanent structure. Either one of them. Is that,
It does not meet.
you're saying that the greenhouse is exempt
Yes.
from permitting?
Yes.
All right. And
Yes.
So the building department gave me, show it to you.
Yeah, I have it right here, so I
Yeah,
can.
we got it right here.
I think I can kind of go through
Yeah,
it.
go ahead.
One thing I'd like to show you, though, this is what it says for, exempt from permit, okay, on this page.
Do you mind if we hold that up here for a minute? Do you mind if we hold this up here for a minute?
That says.
Well,
things
you
exempt from
included
permit.
that.
Right.
didn't you?
When I
Yeah.
photocopied it, the highlight didn't come out,
Yep, I see it.
okay? And then on the next page, this is what they highlighted for my daughter when she went to the building department. to
we
make
do have
sure
that.
that it was-
Yeah,
But when I photocopied it, it did not come out.
yeah, you have
highlight.
the arrows
That's why I
pointing
put
to
the
it.
arrow
There
there,
we go.
just so you could see.
So, sorry, I just need to have to go back to my microphone, thank you. So essentially, our section 105, dot 2, essentially, is work exempt from a permit. One of them, number one is one-story detached accessory structures, provided that floor area does not exceed 200 square feet. So they're both under 200 square feet, so it's exempt from a permit there. On top of that, it appears that number 11 states greenhouses covered exclusively with plastic film that are under 200 square feet are exempt as well. So,
pretty straightforward.
yeah, that seems pretty straightforward. Okay.
This is a public document,
Yes.
and this was part of the bylaws?
Yeah.
The state building
it's the state
code.
building code. 780, CMR 78051.
I was
See if
not
anyone
aware
else
of it.
wants to speak to
I
it.
wish the building inspector could have shown that to me. This all could have been avoided.
So I'm happy to turn if you want to turn that over to him.
Just before
Thank you. Yep, yep.
Mr. Renzella is done, do either of you have any
I
questions?
don't have any questions for Mr. Renzo.
I don't have any either.
All right, I am good now. Do you have anything else for us, or?
No, I have other pictures, but they're basically not as clear as the ones I gave you.
Sure, and we're gonna keep the public hearing open, so we'll, if there's a need for you to speak again, you'll be able to. So. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak for or against this application?
These pictures are a little bit more blown up, if you wanted to get a better idea from his.
Yeah, we'll
point of
take
view.
them and put them in the record.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sherry.
I think,
Are you looking to come up? Sure, come on up.
Am I on?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. Hearing is weird. Sherry Ellis, on the zoning bylaw review committee, I'll be speaking with you a lot more about this, but on my agenda item. But just for clarification, so I understand, this appeal is really to talk about the building inspector's decision, not necessarily whether these are granted variances, correct? If I
Yes,
understand
correct.
correct.
Yep.
So, and my understanding is the building inspector, current building inspector, came on board in 2020. And so anything from that date forward, you should be able to make an interpretation or a decision on, correct?
Yeah, and I think he did. I think
Obviously,
that-
anything prior to his time, he would defer and say, that I can't rule on that because somebody else, would have done that. But, so it sounds like this is could be a split kind of thought process anyway, as far as 2020 going forward. It sounds like the greenhouse perhaps was done during that time and the shed was before that, just so I understand, to help me out for later on, when we talk more about accessory structures and this stuff. So that was my question.
Yep, it sounds about right, yeah. It looks like Mr. Dupel, Inspector Dupel, made a decision based off of, comments from, the owner, so.
And the code book dates to 2015, so.
And so the
200 square
Massachusetts
feet.
building code supersedes the international building code, is that, then the town would be even more restrictive?
I'm not a expert in that, but I would say that,
The ninth edition, so it goes back
Right,
quite a
so
ways.
I understand the international building code is any structure under 120 square feet, so and the state then is 200? So it allows some,
Yeah, there's the Massachusetts code book, we're not going by international.
well, that's what I was asking.
Yeah,
is-
yeah,
So the
yeah, and-
Massachusetts would supersede in this
Yes.
case?
Correct, yes.
and theoretically, I guess, if Burlington wanted to put stricter laws on that, theoretically they could, I would assume, but,
Okay.
They
Thanks.
can make their own bylaws.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
per the cover, it says it's an amendment to the International Residential Code, so I would think that,
Sure,
to
they,
your point, supersedes
Yeah,
the
RSC,
international
yeah.
on that.
they typically all refer to each
RSC,
other.
yeah, so we're going by the, this is what we build our houses to, or anything we do. The RSC is gonna be a commercial end of the, more or less commercial fire, high masonry.
So before we move forward, I just wanted to note that in Mr. Renzella's packet, I'm just going to read this into the record real quick, that Board of Appeals, the signatures below are Burlington residents who have no objections to the structures of 12 Duncan Road, one plastic shed and one aluminum / plastic greenhouse, which are located left rear section of the property. These structures are 160 square feet or less and do not require a building permit. So just want to let the record show it's 49 signatures between different areas in that.
I actually got those signatures based on I had a person show up at my house from Bassett Ave, the next street over, and they received a certified letter stating that there was gonna be a meeting about this. They came to me and they said, what's going on with this, and how's this gonna affect me? So I actually took the person, I showed them the shed, I showed them the greenhouse, I showed them the house who's placing the complaint, and I said, this is, the building inspector said I did not require a permit, these are not permanent structures. I said, oh, okay. And then I figured, well, I'll try to go, I went up and down Duncan Road, all my neighbors, and I explained the situation, so they got the notice. And I said, if you have any objections, let me know. If not, if you want to sign this, I'll present this to the board. And I went up Duncan Road, I went up Bassett Ave, I catch as many people as who were out in the yard. And then I had some other friends where I work, who live in Burlington, I explained the situation. I didn't just blindly give them a paper and ask them to sign it. I showed them the pictures of the greenhouse in the shed, and I did show them the trees behind it. And, I invited anybody who signed the paper, if you want to come to my house, if you notice on the top right corner of the paper is my cell phone number. I said, that's my cell phone number. You can call me, you can text me, you can come to my house, I'll put the dog inside, you can look at the property, you see for yourself. And they said, well, some of them came and they looked at it and they said they didn't understand what the issue was. Because most people in Burlington, when you put a shed up, they put it pretty close to the lot line because it gives you more open space for kids and dogs and everything else. And, nobody mentioned that to me, that there was a rule that, I know permanent structures have to be 15 feet off the lot line, but sheds, I go for walks around Burlington all the time, and I see sheds right up against lot lines and stuff, and I didn't think it was an issue.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll leave the public hearing open, and we'll let the applicant kind of speak on what he's heard, and then we can go from there, all right? Thank you. So do you have any comment or
No, I
questions?
quite frankly, I was not aware of these, and all this could definitely have been avoided. Had I known that this documentation exists, I just wish that the building inspector could have just pointed me to this so I could have read it, rather than wasting everybody's time tonight. I appreciate everyone hearing me out, and that's all I could say. I agree with the decision, so.
All right, thank you. Well, you have to protect your investment, right? So,
Yeah, and it's not a matter of me asking for anything to be torn down. I just wish the building inspector could have just pointed me to this.
sure. So are there any other comments from the board? Okay. I think that, we're probably, unless the public would like to say anything else, I think we could probably, close the public hearing and, have a motion.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? If we're gonna make a motion on this, I think it would be, probably best to do something, to uphold the inspector's denial letter dated September 7th, something in that respect.
Point of order. Wouldn't it be easier just to make a motion to approve his request and then have us deny it if that's what we're gonna do?
Well, we're not approving.
Yeah, we're not really approving his request.
Yeah, we're not approving it tonight.
Right, he wants to overturn it.
Yeah, he wants to overturn a decision.
Yeah, that
so,
could get tricky.
yeah.
So the positive would be to uphold, I
Uphold
guess.
the building inspector's decision, I think.
Motion to uphold the building inspector's denial letter dated September 7th, 2023 regarding the request for enforcement at 12 Duncan Road.
Correct.
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve or uphold the building inspector's denial letter of September 7th, 2023 regarding the request for zoning enforcement at 12 Duncan Road. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the last item on our agenda tonight is Sherry Ellis from the ZBRC. It's going to give us a presentation on the accessory structure warrant that I believe is being presented soon, if not already.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can you just
For the record.
introduce yourself?
For the record, Sherry Ellis, the Chair of the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. Appreciate you having me here. I'm really here to get information from you all. And this was very enlightening. I've sat through a couple of other of your meetings regarding accessory uses, and that kind of prompted our committee to take a look at how we can improve the bylaws so there's less confusion from residents, from, people who are looking to build things, accessory uses. So you're very aware of the situation of what is a structure, what is a permanent structure, what is, does it need a permit, does it not need a permit, does it need just a zoning, clarification. So we put forth and I hope you got a copy of it, I didn't bring any with me, so it's a,
Print any out?
I actually sent.
I have it on my screen, but that doesn't help anyone else. I mean, I've already gone over this. I'm on ZPSC, so feel free to use my screen. I can use the bathroom right now anyway.
So we're putting forth a warrant article that's in 3 sections. The first section is to provide some new definitions that don't exist, and these are all related to accessory uses, mostly residential related. Setbacks, front, rear, and side, those definitions don't exist currently in the bylaws. Then we're proposing also to amend a couple existing bylaws or definitions, which would include structure and building height and possibly building, depending on how we define structure. The last part is actually the use table, or the dimensional regulation table, I should say. And there's a paragraph before that that is key, I think, into all of this and the clarity of whether something needs a permit. And it never states what needs a permit and what doesn't. So therefore, then the building inspector relies on the state building codes, which for buildings is great, but maybe for zoning, not so much. So we've been trying to determine, really, what is the real good definition of the structure? is the one that we have currently clear? Is it not? And so I'm looking to come to you, as the people who kind of have to deal with this a lot, for your opinions and your, comments on what we've put forward. So I'm guessing that you haven't really looked it over that much, but I just give you that introduction. And then I'm happy to come back and delve into it more.
Help us if you could give us whatever it is the Warren article is, so we can.
Yeah, I forwarded the updated version at like quarter of.
Right, right. And I sent one earlier, but we
Yeah.
had obviously had another meeting, we worked on it. I can certainly, I don't know if we can copy now here, and I can forward it out.
Yeah, sure. I have it on my phone.
And I don't know that we, totally need to delve into this
Sure.
tonight. But I'm happy to, thanks, Jen. Sorry, I didn't really think about. We do everything online on our committee, so we don't have any paper, so I didn't
When
really.
you're talking about accessory dwelling, are you also talking?
Not
about-
dwellings, just accessory uses. Sheds, what are they?
So we're not-
Sheds,
we're not getting
greenhouses.
In-laws or anything like that?
No, this is not having anything to do with accessory dwelling units. That's a bear we don't want to conquer
That's
at this point. We'll leave that to the planning board and other powers that be.
So it's just detached sheds and,
Correct. And really, what are those structures, right? The Mass Building Code eliminates fences, eliminates oil tanks, a few other
yeah, and the
things, right?
zoning picks up on it, but to me, as far as a shed, which is our biggest problem, the 3 feet off the lot line, this 15-foot rule is, asinine, my personal opinion.
Well, is a shed a structure?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So then does a structure need a permit? So what we've talked about, so Mark DePel, the building inspector, is on ZBRC
Well, the
too.
permit would control 3 feet off the lot line, so it would force the.
But the
the
zoning
homeowner to
bylaw
get-
right now is 15 feet and 25
Who wants a
feet.
shed in the middle of their yard? Nobody.
But nobody wants a shed up against their yard, and this is what, right?
I think there's a happy balance. I think that, just in my experience on this board, 15 feet works because they can always come to us and there's plenty of reasons for hardship to move it closer to the lot line.
Variance?
There are instances we've had in the past where sheds, are right up against lot lines, and it becomes a real bone of contention. So I think it's important that the neighbors get a voice in some of those
One
setbacks.
survive in the city.
No.
Well, I mean, we
Some
all
of
know
those
that.
sheds are under the square footage that they're
Sure,
talking
that's
about, so you can put them
Well,
up against them.
Correct, that is the interpretation of the previous building inspector. The current building inspector does not do the same interpretation. He believes that everything needs a permit because he wants to make sure it's within the setbacks, or not in the
And
setbacks,
it
right?
should be, whether-
There's where the massive confusion, it's the transition from one person's interpretation to another.
But the building permit and the structure size doesn't change. The structure size goes under the state building code.
But
He wants to control the building permit, so to make sure it's the setback, the height.
So what, in our discussions with the
Up
building
on a
inspector and all that,
foundation.
is that every structure would need a building permit.
I agree with that.
And
Even temporary stuff?
to the point of 15 feet, I completely agree. 3 feet seems reasonable, but if we do 15 feet, we can talk about them, because what I've seen is each one's unique very often, where we've had people say, that's in the line of sight. I walk out my front door and I see shed, and I don't see sky, right? We've had some where people have leveled the ground and raised it a couple feet and put a shed, right? So there's a lot of variability, especially with the topography of Burlington.
That's why
So
if
many
you have a
hills.
building permit, it
Right.
forces them to do a site plan. The site plan is, everybody's gonna see it. There's nothing hidden.
Yeah, and then they want to go less than 15 feet,
They
and
come
then
to
we can get into the individualistic aspects of that shed or that structure with sightlines and other things that come up.
Right.
Because it's that control.
And therein lies where, every structure should have a permit.
So-
Agree or disagree, but that's kind of where we're heading, because
So-
that way we know where it sits on the lot.
Yeah, is that?
Correct. He's correct about that. That should be, whether it's under the state 200 square feet or not. Permit's the permit, we know it's there, we know it's within the setback, because someone's gonna call.
Right. And then you guys get the brunt of the back and forth, whereas if somebody's calling because they want it closer than the 15 feet, that's an easier determination for you than some of the ones that have, been coming back and forth where, well, it didn't require a permit, or it did, and that's kind of, and we don't know what the next building inspector, so we're trying to make the zoning bylaw as clear as possible, so there's less interpretation needed. If
Absolutely.
they
I
need
think
a
that-
variance, then there's a route to do that.
I
But
think
let's,
having something that is a little bit more concrete,
Yes, concrete.
so that we don't have, as we have
Right.
people come in and out as inspectors, hopefully they stay here for a while, but if they don't, we turn them over, we have to learn new
Correct.
interpretations.
And
like that.
eliminate, 90% of sheds coming from here.
Right,
Easily
right.
just reduce the setback.
What's the,
Solve that problem, it's a
if I
shed.
can ask, what's the ZBRC's position on permitting for all structures? Is that,
I think we're tending to lean towards having every structure. So therein lies the next critical piece of this is, what is a structure? So the current definition of structure is anything constructed or erected, the use of which demands a permanent location in the soil, or attached to something having a permanent location in the soil. So if your plastic shed is put on concrete blocks in the soil, is that permanent? Again, there's more interpretation that we would love to get out of that.
Well, that's a gray area throughout the state, but to me, it's permanent, because I'm never moving my shed, once I put it in.
You know,
It's a
tonight,
permanent-
this person here said, oh, it's plastic, it's not permanent,
Put it
it's,
on
just,
blocks,
But
wood,
at the same time,
plastic
it's been there
floor.
since 2015.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
the opposite of permanent in our bylaws definition is temporary, which means it's less than a year. So if you're gonna put up a shed for less than a year and move it around your yard every year,
A shed is a permanent, whether it's plastic, the thing is, a lot of the homeowners get these plastic kits now, and they say it's a temporary one, but it's a permanent one.
well, I can
Got a
tell you, when I
plastic
moved into my house back in
Mine's 15
'89,
years old.
there was a shed, if you could call it that, that was, falling on its side this way, and it was on the property line. And we couldn't, as the buyers, we couldn't buy the house. The bank wouldn't give us the house until that shed was moved. Didn't have any concrete pad underneath of it. It was literally on the ground. So 3 of us literally picked it up, moved it into the middle of the yard, and then we could do it. But, so again, we want to try and eliminate as much, interpretation ability.
There's
as
also the
possible.
10 years too. If a structure's built for 10 years and unenforced, after that, it becomes a non-conforming structure as well.
Most of
It's
those,
surprising that they made you move it for that.
Well, I have no idea
wanted to
when
get
it
the
was
house
put.
Yeah, I mean,
Who documents all
whatever.
these things and what
It's a
what
simple
creates the
solution.
document? So the clearer we can make the bylaw, which is our charge, really, and looking for, comments and help from you if, these things. So structure, the definition of structure, we haven't
it
come.
should include plastic shed, because a plastic shed you buy as a kit comes with a 10 or a 15-year warranty, so that's not a temporary
It's not a
structure.
temporary thing, right? So, again, is it,
And it's less than 200 square feet, but that guy's plastic shed was that was a nice shed.
well, and they do,
I think what they can do
Still
now
was
with
exempt,
plastic
But
is
it
a
was,
lot different.
yeah, it was
So the only way to really make that permanent is that you put it, there's the section that above the regulation table, and what we've proposed to do in there, it says, no building or structure shall be located, nor shall any existing building or structure be enlarged or altered without a.
We're missing pages.
I don't think on that
So-
copy.
Yeah,
So-
we only have pages 1 and 3.
Charles emailed it to us, so.
I don't know why I'm looking
You've
at it.
got
I
it
have
there,
it here.
yeah.
We got us all going on sheds, right? I
Ralph
mean,
twisted up on the shed now.
yeah. So I think the crux or the gist of this whole thing is in the beginning paragraph of the regulation table. So we would look to amend it to say, no building or structure shall be located, nor shall any existing building or structure be enlarged or altered without a building permit, and only in conformance with the density regulation schedule as to lot area, and all of the things in the table. So basically, we're adding that every structure would need a permit.
Yeah, and I as a resident of Burlington, I would be in favor of that, because I would want to know if you know, a plastic shed was coming up.
You got
right
100
this way.
square foot, I'm gonna call on, it's on the lot line.
Yeah.
And they're right,
This case shows
they're all structures.
how silly all this is, right?
It's,
It's really silly.
Words
because
matter.
This individual, Vaskin, I mean, why weren't they talking to each other? This is silly, right?
well,
I didn't
it
even
comes,
know, right?
I mean, this
You
really
should've come to
starts
him
from the
and said,
transition.
Here's the
He
reg
could've
right
gone to his
here.
neighbor. He
Well,
could've gone to
he's
his neighbor.
blaming the building inspector, and, you know.
There must have been something, you could say.
Yeah, they're not having a beer together.
Yeah.
Well, but it really stems from the confusion from one building inspector to the other, right?
But the
One
code is
building
clear.
inspector didn't want to enforce anything and just said, well, it's fine,
He
it's,
pulled up the 9th edition, goes back to 2015, so that was very clear back in 2015. The shed went up in 2017.
correct, but now the greenhouse that went up in 20,
Greenhouse is exempt because you can grow food in it. It's, you know, you can't stop people.
but it wouldn't be exempt if we changed this bylaw to say any structure.
And it wouldn't
Right.
stop you from having it. It would just
It wouldn't
make
stop, you
you
just have to get a
check
permit.
in.
It wouldn't stop you from having it, you would have to put it, you know, whatever, 15 or 25 feet away from the property line, whatever the setback is, unless you come for a variance. It's not gonna stop you, but it will at least eliminate, do I need it, do I not? And,
Yeah,
and
no,
I think that's the key.
Yeah, and they're focusing on a floor.
So we-
Because of the floor. It should be, because it's got a roof over it, it's a structure.
Yeah.
It should say nothing about the floor. Who cares what the floor is, to say it's permanent, not permanent? All plastic sheds are permanent.
Well, I mean, we'll have this continuing
we-
conversation tomorrow, but what is the structure? Is a giant swing set a structure?
Yeah, so that's some of the stuff we discussed in the last meeting when Mark DePello was bringing it up, and he said it would be easier for him if every structure needed a permit, but we also fall into the, well, what about a little plastic thing that you could put your garbage cans in? Technically, then you'd need a permit for that. It's like,
Well, that's 4 feet in
So-
height, so then you gotta, you know, those little
Yeah.
lifetime.
yeah, what,
bins.
how do we, it still creates
The
some gray
definition of
area.
Structure is now the next critical part. Is the chicken coop a structure?
Yeah, the more you
Yeah.
look at it, the more deeper you see it.
But then
goes.
again, you get involved, well, that's my food, you can't, how do you?
Because
stop?
that's where we get
You
into
can
with the
have it,
sheds.
You just have to not, you know, you not,
Under
you
200
can't put it
square
on
feet's
your
not a
property line,
structure.
right?
Yeah, under 200 square feet's not considered a structure.
200
Then-
square
Then we
feet's
get
pretty
in,
big, though.
it is. And then, so it's a structure needs the permit, I mean, but I see it's going in the right direction. It's creating more clarity.
Square foot, you probably go down to $1.50, because 200 is pretty low.
Well, what I'm trying to,
Sheds are
what
around
I'm trying to clarify is that it doesn't matter the size. Doesn't matter the size. You'll need a permit.
Structure with a roof.
I think the good point is, like, how small do you get before you just let it go? Like, what is a kid's swing set where that section has like walls and a roof? Do
Yeah,
you
well,
have to permit that?
You know, you're gonna target the trampolines, and, you know, we shouldn't even be targeting a swing set, you know?
Right. I think we need clarity. I think we need to do
Then
it
the-
right.
then
That's
there's-
what I'm asking is.
Yeah, there's
come up with that.
specifics on greenhouses. I pulled that one up. So Burlington, I wasn't even gonna get into the whole debate on it. Burlington actually had something on greenhouses that superseded the building code. Burlington actually went up to 250 instead of 200 on greenhouses. As long as they're not commercial greenhouses, they're allowed.
Is that in the zoning or is that in the Board
It's
of
in
Health?
zoning, yeah.
Zoning, okay,
It was
Yeah, I
it
think
was in a
that-
usage table.
okay.
Everything should need a permit. And
The only consideration about everything needing a permit, so when someone comes for a variance, there's a fee for that, correct?
yes,
That's 100?
it depends, I think.
Oh, does it? Okay.
It's based off the abutters and.
Okay, all right. So when you go for a building permit, there's also a fee. So now, people who previously, you know, underneath whatever the 120, 200, whatever it was, you know, didn't go for a permit, they didn't have a fee. So now if every structure needs a permit, then everyone will have to pay a fee. So that is a cost burden, you know, to
Yeah.
someone who wants to put up a 6x8 little shed is gonna have to pay a fee. So the other consideration for that the building inspector has said is, well, maybe there's a zoning permit where you take out the, you know, for the accessory use, it's just zoning. We just need to, you know where you're putting it in the lot and what it is. And
Yeah, right,
that
right.
wouldn't need to be.
Something under 200 square feet or
It,
whatever.
it could be a, you know, a lesser fee, a smaller fee. So that's another discussion that we're still having. Again, this is put forward for January. We'll see how,
Right.
if it goes, but
When is that meeting? Is January, is there a date yet?
January town meeting is the 22nd. So we have another meeting, ZBRC has another meeting, well, we have one tomorrow night. And then we have one more in December. But this is also going before the planning board at public hearing, so we're gathering their input as well. And of course, we have Mark's, the building inspector's input every meeting. So I'm listening to, what you're saying, and I'd love more feedback if you have it.
Yeah, I think that, it probably, it's appropriate probably for us to review it a little bit more in depth if we wanted to say anything. I'm happy to, maybe we could email you individually, any comments.
That'd be fine. I'd take any comments, any thoughts, any suggestions.
It's for everybody.
Just give everybody free sheds.
Free sheds for everybody.
You're getting a shed.
Okay.
You're getting a
No,
shed.
I think that,
Okay.
I definitely have some, ideas popping around in my head that I'd like to think about a little bit. And
Okay.
I could definitely get back to you, whether it's either at another meeting or I could come to one of your meetings, maybe. we could do it
That would
way.
be fine, yeah. So the meeting, there is a print deadline where we would have to submit as close to as possible what the warrant article will be. So our goal is by that December meeting is to have everything finalized that we would put into the warrant. We can still always pull it if,
Sure, yeah.
that goes forward, but
You know what the date of that December meeting is, just so I can,
the second Wednesday in December, I want to say it's the 13th, if that's a Wednesday. I don't have my calendar in front of me.
okay.
I think so. I think it's the 13th.
Back in '04, I had a 144 square foot shed. Close to the lot line, my neighbor called, they made me cut my roof down there, 5 feet on one side and 6 feet on the other side. They said my roof was too tall, 8-foot studs. And then they made me go for a
Well,
variance at
if you think this
144
is
square
tricky,
feet.
which I know you think this is tricky and you appreciate this, I'd like to come back some other time
were there. I
after
don't know
this
what
is
you
done
did, but I
and
remember
talk
you-
signage. Because we're working on a sign bylaw amendment, which we've been working on for about 2 years. And we're, just quickly, we're looking to kind of blow the thing up and do it by signage districts. So the first district that we're working on is the town center overlay. So we would do it by areas and related kind of, not just the zone, the building, or the town zones, the zoning districts. We would do it by more, retail versus, different areas of town, the mall area of town, the town center, small business areas. So we'd kind of rethink it that way. And that's kind of where we're going with it. And we've had some help with planning board because they've had the town center overlay, the design guidelines. So, but again, you guys are dealing with all of these variances because the signage sizes are wonky, and old. And so we'll look to you for help with, those numbers and those kind of dimensional things, and any other.
Yeah, if you have any, I know I went to maybe a couple of those meetings at the beginning. If you have any of the, updated drafts, if you want to send them to Jen, we could definitely take a look at that too.
Okay. I want to pick your brain on this one first. This one's going forward to town meeting, so this one's important. And then, once we kind of go through that, then we'll hit the signage. Because I don't think signage is going to go through for May, because that's a big town meeting. So maybe we'd get it in September. That would be.
Okay, so we have about a year or so.
All right?
So nothing about in-laws.
New.
Disappointed.
I'm not going there, because you can't just do in-laws. You have to do, and, the planning board is starting
There's
to
so many
tackle.
gray areas.
There are.
Your new building inspector changed the rules that
You've got in-law,
Years
you've got
ago.
you've got the ADUs, you've
Someone's
got
gotta
in-laws,
take-
you've got two-family, three-family. Now they're making a definition for middle family, or middle housing, multi-family. You have to redo housing all at once. And I'm not doing that. Sorry.
No blame.
I'm not tackling that one.
Anything that clarifies the zoning,
It's all how they interpret it next door, and they're not interpreting
Makes
it
our
the way
job
the
easy,
previous
right?
administration interpreted it.
Well, and that's the clearer you have the bylaws, the less interpretation you can do. If it's laid out clearly,
Yeah.
it's like, I can answer that. The current building inspector will defer anything that is not clear, and I don't blame him. I mean, right? If it's not written, go to you guys and let you guys decide it. But make it clear so he can really have something to make a decision on, so.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sherry.
All right, I don't have the.
Get all that down?
What's next? Oh, agenda, minutes. So, is there a motion to approve the minutes from 9/5?
Motion to approve the minutes from 9/5.
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes from 9:05. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any other business?
John, was that the meeting you weren't here?
Did I
Yeah.
vote?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Jeremy.
but I-
Yeah, so
I voted.
Jeremy voted that.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?